What's good, you YouTube? It's me, your boy Squiddy, back in with another video. Today I want to talk about the Nouvelles. These are a very French cuisine slash food chef oriented inspired deck that's actually a lot of fun, and it actually happens to draw some inspiration from a deck of the past, which is actually, well, not really a deck, but a card, actually Hungry Burger. So this card came out like 20 years ago. I actually played this card in my national deck list last year. We played it in our Libromancer deck because you could actually search it off of Isolde as a tribute fodder to summon out your Libromancer Doombroker. So that was a lot of fun. I'm so glad that they're releasing more cards based on this ancient card that was really iconic and really a meme-worthy card. So without further ado, let's just dive in. I'll give you guys a quick overview about how the Nouvelles work. So essentially, they have a couple of monsters. They have 6 ritual monsters ranging from level 1 all the way up until level 6. And from the top, we actually start off with Barilla Base. So this is like the main dude. He's level 1 Beast Warrior. And all of them are ritual summoned using a recipe card. Currently, there are 2 recipes in the game. There's the fish recipe and the meat recipe. But we'll talk about those in a second. So the Barilla Base, if it's special summoned, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck. And if you do, you can add 1 excavated Nouvelles card to your hand. Also shuffle the rest into your deck. And then the other effect that it happens to share with the rest of the monsters in its archetype in some shape or form. They're actually a little bit upgraded as you get higher up in the levels. But this one is when a card or effect is activated that targets this card on the field, or when this card is targeted for an attack, quick effect, you contribute this card and 1 attack position monster on either field. And if you do, special summon 1 level 2 or level 3 Nouvelles ritual monster from your hand or your deck. And it's a hard once per turn. So as you guys know that ritual monsters can actually be special summoned from the hand or deck without having to ritual summon them properly beforehand. It's a lot like how Cyberstein can special summon fusion monsters from the extra deck, but then when they're in the graveyard, you kind of have to have had to special summon them via fusion summon originally to monster reborn them. So you can cheat these guys out. Essentially, they all have that effect where they can tribute itself as well as a attack position monster where they're controlled by your opponent or by you, and then special summon a level higher than its current level. So Barilla Base allows you to mill 5 and then add 1 card. And then there's a card called Confurus de Nouvelles, which is a level 2. You can ritual summon with Rituals recipe card. And then if this card is special summon, you get to pop a spell or trap on the field. And then it also shares the same effect where if a card effect is targeted that targets this card, or when it's targeted for an attack, you contribute this card and 1 attack position monster on either field, special summon 1 level 3 or 4 Nouvelles ritual. So you can see we're kind of like you get to upgrade your appetizer for like a bigger main dish. And now we get to the level 3, which is Poultier de Nouvelles. If this card's special summoned, you can draw 1 card. And note that all their effects are if they're special summoned, not if they're ritual summoned. So when they're special summoned off of each other's effect, they get the effect that's built in inherently. So this one allows you to draw a card. And this one has a nice little upgrade. It says when a card or effect is activated that targets a monster on the field, or when a monster is targeted for an attack, quick effect, you contribute 1 Nouvelles monster you control and 1 attack position monster on either field. And if you do, special summon 1 level 4 or 5 Nouvelles ritual monster from your hand or deck, card once per turn. So it's a little bit of an upgrade than Confurus and Barilla Base because you can actually use the effect to tribute a Nouvelles monster you control and 1 attack position monster on the field. So it can be any Nouvelle. And it can happen when any monster is targeted for a card effect or an attack, not just itself. So if you summon this in attack mode, you can actually trigger its own effect by declaring an attack in the battle phase and then tributing itself and an attack position monster your opponent controls. So it's kind of nice that it's a little bit of an upgrade than the dinky level 1 and level 2 guys. And then the level 4 is Foie Gras. So this is like a duck-based meal, I guess. It's really funny. You can ritual summon, use recipe card. If it's special summon, you can target up to 3 cards in any graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. So it's a lot like the Shizu Shufflers. And then it shares the same effect as Poultier, where if a card or effect is activated that targets a monster field, or when any monster is targeted for attack, you tribute a Nouvelles card and an attack position monster. Level 5 guy is Balamunier de Nouvelle. He's a whopping 2,000 attack, but same sort of deal, only if he's special summoned, you can add 1 Nouvelle or recipe card from your deck to your hand. So that's a lot of fun. You can basically search off of this guy. And then his effect is actually an upgrade as well. It says you can target 1 attack position monster your opponent controls, tribute it, and if you do, special summon 1 level 6 Nouvelles ritual from your hand or your deck. And this is actually a quick effect if it was special summoned by the effect of a Nouvelles monster. So if you ritual summon this out, he has a trigger, an ignition effect. You can't use it as a quick effect. But if you special summon him out via the effect of another Nouvelles, you can actually use this effect as a quick effect, Disruption. So it's a lot of fun. And then the last guy is actually Belgrade the Nouvelles. So this is like the Master Chef. You can see he has like 6 stars in his little chef vest there. And he's a level 6. You can summon it with any ritual card. If this card is special summoned, you can negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn. So that's a lot of fun. You can negate floodgates as well. And then, if this card was special summoned by the effect of a Nouvelles monster, you can tribute as many monsters your opponent controls as possible. Any monster, even face down, even defense mode, doesn't have to be an attack. But that only happens if you upgraded it via the effect of the previous guy that we were looking at, Balaminiere. However, if you ritual summon them out, he still has a niche effect of negating all your opponent's face-up cards. And then the other effect, that's a quick effect built in, is you can target one attack position monster your opponent controls, tribute it, and if you do, special summon one Hungry Burger from your hand or deck. So this guy is summoning Hungry Burger for us. You can kind of see like he's the main course, and there's a little side burger next to him, so I guess that's a Hungry Burger. And you can ritual summon this out the hard way, just cheat it out with a ritual spell, and then still be able to have that quick effect disruption, so that's a lot of fun. Okay, so that does it for the monsters. Let's talk about some of the spell support really quick. So we have the 2 recipes, okay? There's actually 3 recipes. There's a Hungry Burger recipe or hamburger recipe as well, but unfortunately this one only summons Hungry Burger, and we don't really want to play this card just to summon Hungry Burger, right? So instead, we're looking at Recette de Poisson, which is fish recipe, and Recette de Viande, which is meat recipe. So fish recipe is the main one. That's the best one because both of them you can summon any Nouvelles ritual monster, but this one says you tribute monsters from your hand or field that equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster, just like a ritual spell. Then if you ritual summon Barilla Base, which again is the level 1 guy, you can actually add 1 ritual recipe spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except fish recipe. So we can actually add meat recipe. Meat recipe is more of a vanilla in this deck specifically. What it does is the same thing, but if you ritual summon Confiras, which is the level 2, you can change all defense position monsters your opponent controls to attack position, which kind of forces them to switch, shift gears so you can start tributing their attack mode monsters. And then there's another support spell card called Voici la carte, today's menu, which is a lot of fun. It says reveal 2 Nouvelle monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent chooses one for you to add to your hand, and you shuffle the other into their deck. So your opponent's like making an order here. You reveal 2. And then based on the type that you added to your hand, if it's a beast warrior, you add recipe fish. And if it's a warrior type, you add a meat recipe. And it's a hard once per turn. So a lot of these guys are beast warriors, but the higher level guys, the level 5 and the 6, I believe, are actually the warriors. Or rather, I guess Belgrade is just the only warrior. So the other guys are beast warriors. So you can kind of control what recipe you want by revealing 2 of the same type, for example, with just different names. And generally, you want to get the fish recipe anyways, because that's one that actually gives 2 a plus by adding the meat recipe when you summon Barilla Base. And then the last Nouvelles card that we want to kind of talk about is Nouvelles Restaurant à la Table. So at the table, this is their main field spell that, of course, is a searcher. When it's activated, you can add 1 recipe card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And then once per turn, you can place 1 ritual monster from your hand to the bottom of your deck, draw a card. So that's a lot of fun. You can place back any bricks you don't want to draw a card. And then during the end phase, you can target 2 cards in your graveyard, including a recipe card. Place them on the bottom of your deck in any order, then draw 1 card. So that's awesome. You can recycle any card, you recycle your recipes, and you get to free +1 draw in the end phase. And then there's also the loot effect, which you can do with the placing a ritual to the bottom of your deck. So the first thing that you kind of notice about this deck is it's obviously a ritual deck, so there's not a lot of room for non-engine. However, you can play a lot of cards that allow you to get instant +1 gratification. So we have pre-prep of rights, which allows you to add fish recipe, which happens to mention Barilla Base. So then you add a copy of Barilla Base, that's a +1. It's a lot like Pot of Greed. There's preparation of rights, which allows you to add any level 7 or lower ritual monster, then add a ritual spell from your graveyard to your hand, +1. Voici la carte, which allows you to add a Nouvelles monster and then a fish recipe, for example, +1 again. So there are a lot of super powerful starters in this deck, but they happen to take up a lot of space. We're also playing a fairy engine here. We're playing the Bentens, of course, because they're just so good. All of these monsters are level 6 or lower, so it's really easy to tribute 1 Benten and get a free search. We can search Diviner the Herald, which is awesome because it's a tuner, allowing us to make powerful cards like Baron de Fleur, allowing us to send a copy of Herald, obviously, to search any ritual. And then when Diviner of the Herald is actually tributed, you can special summon a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or your deck, except itself. So we can actually special summon Cyber Petite Angel, which is really awesome because Diviner gains levels when it sends Herald. Then we can use the ritual spell to either tribute it to summon a ritual monster Nouvelles, or we can even tribute Diviner of the Herald for the built-in Nouvelles effect, which allows you to tribute an attack position monster on either player's field. So we can tribute the Diviner, and then it special summons Cyber Petite Angel, which allows us to add another copy of Ben 10. So a lot of fun. We're also playing some other fairies, playing Curry Card, Div Incarnate, which can be just a generic fairy. I thought it was kind of cool. It cannot be searched off of Ben 10, unfortunately, because it's not a light fairy, but it's just like another option to have. And then, of course, Herald of Orange Light, which happened to come to 2, so I think this is a lot of fun now that you can search it off of Ben 10, and it's just generically good in this deck as Disruption. Just playing some copies of Ash Blossom for you to draw into off Nouvelles Restaurant. And then some tactics. Oh, and for the last card I forgot to mention, actually, they also do have a trap card called Chef's Special Recipe. This is an Omni Negate. What it does is when a spell trap or monster effect is activated while you control a Nouvelles ritual monster, negate the activation. Then you can destroy that card if you control a monster that was special summoned by the effect of a Nouvelles monster. So that's a lot of fun. Generally, you don't really have a Nouvelles that was special summoned off of a monster effect, rather a hard summon off of a ritual spell instead. So it's just to negate the activation and doesn't destroy when you're setting up your board on turn 1. And then the other effect in the graveyard is if you special summon Hungry Burger, you can banish this card from your graveyard, tribute as many monsters your opponent controls as possible. So it's a lot of fun. It's searchable. It's a recipe card. It's not searchable off Fish Recipe, unfortunately, because that only searches ritual spells, but it's searchable off of your Balamuniere. Alternatively, it's also searchable off the field spell because it can add any recipe card, which this happens to be. Now, I got this deck recipe inspiration from an OCG player. I was looking a lot on YouTube. I couldn't really find anything competitive about this deck, but I saw an OCG player that was playing this actually at a tournament, and he ended up doing quite well, and I really liked his build, so I drew inspiration from that. I'm going to link that down below in the description so you can see how the deck actually plays in a tournament setting. We're not actually choosing to run Confuras to level 2 because it's a little bit bad in my opinion. Being able to pop a spell trap just does nothing for you going first, so I just don't like the card. I don't think we need it. And then the level 4 as well is just not very good in a cash tier heavy metagame, so instead we chose to side it just in case we're playing against something that's grave reliant, so we can shuffle back cards. Artifact Lancey on the side, obviously being searchable at Ben 10 is really nice. You can also choose to try other things like Archlord Christia if you're that bold. And just playing some other generic cards. Bestios are nice because they're level 6, so you can actually overlay with Diviner of the Herald for a copy of Wallow, and then go into Gaia Charger and then Zeus. And of course, we're playing XL Stardust because it's very, very good with the level 2s, being able to pair with a level 6 to go into Baron instantly. Sprite Elf was actually really, really powerful in this deck because you could constantly loop Herald, but unfortunately that card's banned, so instead we were playing other cards like Chaos Angel, which can also be really easily summoned with our Lights and Darks. And everything else is generic. The Item Mundo is really, really nice because you can always you special summon back your ritual monsters on their turn. Also, the effect when special summon, you can target one card on the field and one ritual monster in your grave. You can target your own monsters to trigger the effects to tribute your opponent's attack position monsters. Just bear in mind that this is a quick effect, not like Teosmith's Havness, so they can actually chain block it if they choose to. So you have to chain directly to the effect that targets it. Just something to be aware of. But that being said, we're also playing Salamangreat Almirage because this card can actually tribute itself to target a monster we control to trigger the effects again. And then, of course, Track Black, which is a generic Link 2 that also allows you to target one monster you control this card points to. And then we can trigger the effect to tribute it and face up attack position monster opponent controls. So that's about it for the deck profile. Without further ado, I'll show you guys a couple of opening hands just to test. Alright guys, we're back here with a combo video showing you guys a generic hand and what you can do with this deck. This deck is extremely tasty, and as you can see, we already have two of our most important starters in the deck, which are Pseudo Greeds in the form of Voici la Carte, today's menu, and Pre-Prep of Rites. These cards are absolutely bonkers because they let you get +1 off the bat with no restrictions. And we also have a tasty ingredient in the form of Cyber Angel Benton, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what we can order with this hand in particular. Well, I generally like to start off with Voici la Carte before pre-prep just because we're not giving our opponent free information because they're going to be the ones ordering for Voici la Carte anyways. We're going to be revealing two options for them to choose from. And I generally like to search both Balamuniere and Polti, so they get the option of either a Beast Warrior or a Beast Warrior. So they're going to be eating meat on the menu tonight. And generally, I think when revealing these to our opponent, they're going to take a look at these cards and going to be like, okay, well, Balamuniere adds a card of their choice to the hand, whereas Polti adds a random card because you're drawing a blank, right? So you're drawing a card. They're probably going to 9 times out of 10 be like, okay, you get Polti because you get to draw a random card as opposed to adding a card that you want. So they give us Polti, which we actually influence them because we're going to be able to add the fish recipe regardless of which they chose because both were Beast Warriors, right? So we're going to get fish recipe. They're going to be having seafood on the menu tonight. Now, from here, we can activate pre-prep and then continue to add more seafood because why not? So let's go ahead and add the second copy of the fish recipe to our hand. And then from there, we're actually going to add a copy of Barilla Base. So we have 2 Barilla Bases in hand. So why not have some yummy seafood as an appy? We're going to go ahead and activate the recipe. So we're going to cook some fish, tribute off the benten because that is for some reason a prime ingredient in fish appetizers. I don't know, don't ask me, ask Konami. And then from here, because we summoned a Barilla Base, we're going to be able to add a complementary meat recipe to our hand. So let's go ahead and add a meat recipe. And then from here, new chains. We're going to go chain link 1, Barilla Base, chain link 2, Benten. This way we're deck thinning. We're adding a fairy that could be potentially excavated off of Barilla Base. We don't want to do that. That's a no-no. We want to have the highest chance of excavating, right? So let's go ahead and add a Diviner of the Herald because that's going to be our normal summon for the deck. And then we can banish the top 5 of our deck to see what we're hitting here. And we actually do hit another copy of Polti, which is fine. Okay, we'll take it. Why not? It's free, right? It's a complimentary benefit to our meal, so we'll take that. We're going to shuffle back the rest. And then from here, we're going to continue to combo off. But why don't we start by summoning Diviner of the Herald and then sending another copy of our Herald of the Arclight, which allows us to search. And instead of searching Benten, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but no. Well, you could search Benten if you want to keep Diviner on the field and then make Baron, because that's a legal play. Baron is going to be a level 6 Diviner plus a level 1 Barilla Base plus a level 3 Poltis. But I generally like to do a different play, and I'll show you guys what I mean. We're going to use Herald of the Arclight not to search Benten, but to search the missing name, which is Balamunier. And then from here, we're going to do something really unique. So what we're going to do is going to go activate the effect of Recipe of Meat. And then we're going to tribute off the Diviner of the Herald to summon the Balamunier. So what this does is actually Diviner of the Herald has a hidden effect, which we're going to place on Chainlink 2, Chainlink 1, Balamunier. But Chainlink 2, Diviner of the Herald allows us to special summon a level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or your deck when it's tributed, except a copy of itself, obviously. This is kind of a hidden effect. I know a lot of people don't really know about this because you never did this in Drytron, but it's actually a valid play in this deck. So we're going to summon out Cyber Petite Angel, and then we're going to use the effect of Balamunier on the Chainlink 1 to add Nouvelles Restaurant à la Table, which is our main field spell. And then in a new chain, Cyber Petite Angel is going to allow us to add a copy of Benten. So we're back in the works here. We got a additional ingredient in the form of Benten from our supply chain somewhere down the line. And now we're going to activate the effect of Nouvelles Restaurant à la Table. So let's go ahead and add our main ingredient, our secret recipe, which is the Chef Special Recipe, aka our Solemn Judgment Omni Negate. Okay, now we have, look at how many cards we have in our hand. Guys, we have 7 cards and 4 cards on the field. Like, there's so many pluses out of nowhere if this deck is unchecked. It's kind of funny how that works. Now what we can do is we can continue playing. I think what we're going to do here is going to activate the effect of Fish Recipe. They're going to have more fish. Let's summon out another copy of Barilla Base, because what this is going to do, even though it's once per turn, we're still going to be able to add another copy of Meat Recipe back to our hand. So we essentially put a free monster on the table. And now in a new chain, Benten's going to trigger again, allowing us to add another copy of a fairy. Let's see, what do we want to add here? Add another copy of Benten, why not? And then from here, hopefully no one's playing Nib. There are ways to play around it, but, you know, for the sake of the combo, we're just going to go ahead and play into everything. We're going to be bold and unfazed. Going to use the effect of, we're going to tribute Benten with our Meat Recipe to summon out the Polti, and then we're going to use the effect, I think we're going to use Benten Chainlink 1 and then Polti Chainlink 2, so we have a higher chance of drawing a fairy. Then that way we can search the Herald over the Orange Light with our Cyber Angel Benten, right? So just sequencing matters. Okay, we drew talents, that's fine. And then Benten's effect is going to allow us to add a fairy. And you know what? I think we're still going to add a copy of Herald of the Orange Light just because we have the field spell effect, which allows us to draw a card at the end of the turn by shuffling back 2 cards, including a recipe in our graveyard. So let's add the Herald, and also it sinks fear into our opponent's heart because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, Herald of the Orange Light, that's another thing we have to deal with. So it's going to be at the back of their head anyways. Now, from here, we have some cool options. So we have a bunch of monsters on the field. We have some disruptions already set up. Why don't we actually use the effect of Nouvelles Restaurant to shuffle back the Polti that we don't need to draw a card. See if we can draw. Oh, Preparation of Rites. That is a good draw if I do say so myself. That actually does change things up a little bit. Or does it really? I don't know. We could just activate it immediately and add a copy of a field spell. Or either not a field spell, but a copy of our monster rather. So let's go ahead and do that. We have some options. We could just add a copy of Yugioh, which we can tribute out. He happens to be an Omni Negate on its own, which is kind of cool. But unfortunately, that does take 2 monsters to tribute at our current board state because we're out of Bentens. So I think we could have even held this for next turn as follow-up, but let's just add a copy of, I think another copy of Polti, and then we'll just add back our fish recipe, because why not? Just free pluses at this point. And then from here, we can start off our link plays. So we can link off the Cyber Petite Angel and the Barilla base. And the card I like to actually link off here into is, instead of actually Barilla base, because we're actually going to make IP Masquerena, I think. So let's see. Yeah, we'll use Barilla base and then Cyber Petite Angel. So guys, I didn't put IP Masquerena in the original deck profile, but after experimenting a little bit with the deck, I think it's actually needed. It's actually a really, really good card. So guys, please put this card in your deck, because what you can actually do is you can make Dino Mundo on their turn and get both of the effects. So the Disruption Shuffle and also the effect to tribute itself and then target a ritual monster to special summon it back. So I'm going to set the chef's special recipe and just end on this board. Maybe there's something else we can go into. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Maybe we can go to another disruption link in this board state, but it's actually already quite annoying. They can't really target our monsters because Polti will allow us to tribute and then tribute one of their attack position monsters. We have Barilla base, so when they declare an attack on him or on Polti as well, we can start tributing off their monsters. So it's kind of an annoying board state. The IP Masquerena is going to stay because they can't really threaten it by battle, which is kind of nice. And then our end phase, we're actually going to be able to use Alatab to shuffle back a copy of our fish recipe, and then another copy of Benton. I think you can shuffle back any card, but I generally like to shuffle back Benton just so we're recycling to draw a card. So generally, we would have had the other fairies, so Hair of the Orange Light would have been an actual potential option here, but unfortunately in this hand, it's not as of yet anyways. And then we have the Ash Blossom, we have a copy of an Omni Negate, so already there's 2 disruptions there, hard negates. And what we're actually going to do here on our opponent's turn is we're going to use the effect of IP Masquerena when they normal summon or special summon an attack mode monster. And we're going to go ahead and tribute off the IP Masquerena, well, link off, I guess, as well as a copy of the Balamuniere. And then we're going to summon out a copy of a Dynamundo. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use the effect of Dynamundo to target a card on the field and a ritual monster in our graveyard. So let's target a copy of Benton. And then instead of targeting their monster, we're actually going to target our Polti, because what that's going to do is allow us to chain the effect of Polti by tributing itself and 1 attack position monster on either field. So let's say that we're tributing off his attack position monster. Alternatively, I guess you guys could have also put the Barilla base in attack mode in case, just to tribute off itself. But let's go ahead and tribute off the Polti. And then what this will do is tribute off his monster, and then we get to special summon a level 5 Nouvelle from our deck. So we're going to go ahead and summon out Balamuniere, and then his effect will allow us to add some follow-up, so we can add either the field spell or another copy of a recipe and or Nouvelle. And then because it was special summoned by the effect of a ritual monster, what happens here is when they go ahead and summon another attack position monster, it actually becomes a quick effect where we can use Balamuniere to tribute their attack position monster itself, and then we can summon a level 6 Nouvelle's ritual monster from our hand or deck. So we summon out our main master chef here, Gordon Ramsay himself, Vale de Nouvelle. And this card, when it's special summoned, it negates the effect of all face-up cards our opponent currently controls. Then if it was special summoned by the effect of Nouvelle's monster, we can tribute as many monsters as possible. So technically, we could wait until they build like a huge board that threatens Balamuniere to use the effect to tribute one of their monsters, summon out Belgrill, and then start tributing all of their monsters. And then it also, on top of that, has another quick effect where when they continue to play, we can target one of their attack position monsters, tribute that off, and then summon a Hungry Burger, make our main dish from our deck. And then when Hungry Burger is special summoned, assuming that we already used Chef's special recipe earlier as an Omni Negate, we can actually banish this from our graveyard to tribute as many monsters as they control. So it's a little awkward that you have to use it when they control more than one monster to maximize your opportunities, maximize your value. But there's a lot of options that you can do here. You can choose to wait, or you can choose to continue playing. And I just like that IP Masquerena allows you to enable everything off of one Dynamundo being special summoned on your opponent's turn. So yeah, guys, definitely put IP Masquerade in your deck. I know it's not in the original deck profile, but I would definitely put it in there, and I'm too lazy to edit the deck and do it all again. But other than that, this is about it. All I had for the deck profile. As you can see, you have a lot of cards in your hand as well. Herald of the Orange Light being super busted. If you guys have any other options on end boards that this deck could make, definitely let me know below, and we will definitely innovate, because I think this deck is definitely delicious and a lot of fun. And I'm gonna leave a 20% tip because I had a lot of yummy meal tonight. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.